California's Gold is produced in association with KCET Los Angeles and is seen statewide on California Public Television. This series is endorsed by the California Teachers Association, the California School Boards Association, and the California Library Association. There it is. Take a good look at a section of California's Mojave Desert, adjoining the community of Ridgecrest, about 150 miles north of Los Angeles. Now, at first glance, flying over it in a military helicopter, it may look like just another slice of wide-open desert landscape. But on this piece of land, there's a lot going on. Since 1943, this part of our California desert has been home to the Naval Air Weapons Station, China Lake, a huge facility set aside for research, development, testing, and evaluation of everything from missiles to bombs, parachutes to ejection seats. This is a huge base, 1.1 million acres to be exact, as big as the entire state of Rhode Island, and it represents 1/3 of the U.S. Navy's total land holdings. That's a big base. We spent a day at China Lake, starting off with a tour of the U.S. Naval Museum of Armament and Technology, a museum open to the public that's filled with missiles developed and tested there over the years. Now, the museum was well worth a visit and documents a very important part of naval history. But we were on base in search of something else, something that has absolutely nothing to do with missile technology, but something very much a part of California's gold. To get there, we left the main central base and traveled miles and miles out across the wide-open desert. Then up through canyons and through areas breathtaking in their beauty and vistas. Huge Joshua trees as far as the eye could see. All of this still on base. And all of it in its natural beauty. All of this was protected because 95% of the base is not used for testing, but is preserved in its natural, pristine state. After about a 30-mile drive, we reached our destination and began an adventure that literally took us back in time.
Right now, we're right on the southern edge of Coso Rock Art District and National Historic Landmark. It's about 36,000 acres in size, and it contains one of the highest concentrations of petroglyphs in the United States.
36,000 acres in size. This whole area has been declared a National Historic Landmark, and right out here is one of the finest collections of petroglyphs anywhere in the United States.
That's true.
How did you know they were here?
Well, originally back in 1936, anthropologists working in the area were informed by the local tribes that this existed. And they wrote it down, but through World War II, a lot of people forgot. And then a couple people working here in China Lake in the 1970s, along with another anthropologist, came up here and they wrote a very famous book that created a great deal of interest in the area again.
So wait a minute. Archaeologists first came out here in the 30s, but it wasn't until the 1970s that this was really documented and explored and truly appreciated.
That's true. It took a long time for people to recognize the value of this area.
And now it's 36,000 acres. And why here? Why is this located here instead of somewhere else in the 1.1 million acres?
Well, the interesting thing is that a lot of native people feel that the spirit world exists towards the core of the earth. And this being a volcanic field and having geothermal areas, and having a very thin crust in this area, it attracted their attention, and that's why they came here.
So this is all volcanic rock we're looking at around here. At one time, these were all active volcanoes.
Yeah, if you feel like it's hot today, if you had been here a couple million years ago, it would have been much hotter.
Ah, all right, now we're heading, where are we going? Right down here?
Right, we're heading right down to this canyon, and this is an area that we allow people to come on base, and we get people from around the world and here in the United States that like to come up here and check this area out. And this is the only canyon within the National Monument that really has public access to it.
So out of the 36,000 acres, this right here is the only place that we can really go in and explore.
That's right. The rest of the monument is pretty much set aside for scientific investigation and for the native peoples themselves.
Well, it's still pretty basic. There are no paved pathways here. There are no signs. You just kind of pull up, get out of your car, and start walking.
That's pretty much it. You just head into the desert and head towards the basalt, and anywhere in this general vicinity you're going to find a petroglyph.
And look at where we're going. We are just weaving through the rocks right here. Oh my gosh, look down here. It's like a little canyon. We're going down in there?
We're going right down there, and it's absolutely amazing. Once we get down there, you're going to see a lot of things that a lot of people across the country would really love to see.
Well, this is what's interesting about these adventures, because look at this right here. If we didn't have Mike with us, if we didn't know what was down there, you would walk right by this area and never know the treasures that are down there. But we're going to go down and see them right now. Here we go. We're heading down into the canyon, and right in front of us, this is one right here, right?
That's right. That's typical of a type of sheep you find out here.
This is a sheep.
Yep. It's a Coso.
Oh, and look, here's something over here. Here's something over here. They're everywhere around here. What did all of this mean?
Well, no one's quite sure. There are two competing theories. One's an older theory, and it's related to hunting magic. In a sense, folks would come up here, they were looking for sheep to hunt, and they would peck a figure of a sheep into the rock.
I'm seeing sheep right over here. Look at this. A whole rock filled with sheep, and there's a perfectly formed sheep right up there. Look at this, and then all of this side of this rock covered with sheep. How old are these?
Well, the oldest we feel that they are is about 3,000 years. That's based on data we've collected from sites that are associated with the petroglyphs. But the highest period of production for these petroglyphs occurred between 1,200 and 600 years ago.
So these were put on these rocks between 600 and 1,200 years ago.
That's very possible.
So was this like when you walked through here, was it like a gallery of some sort?
Well, it's sort of like a gallery. I mean, certainly people who lived during the period of time in which these petroglyphs were created, they could walk up here and understand what was going on. It's kind of like reading road signs. They would just follow it up and get all sorts of information.
So they would walk along here the same way we're walking along here,
right,
and look at the various drawings and paintings and peckings,
right,
up and down the side of the canyon.
Right, and those would tell them a story, effectively. They would understand what was going on. We, on the other hand, we admire the art and the labor that went into creating these, but we don't have a very clear understanding of what's going on.
We just know it's old.
We know it's old, and we know that it's just great art.
And it was very time intensive.
Right, and so that's another thing we appreciate is the amount of work that went into creating these different figures on these rocks.
The Native American groups always knew that this was here.
Right.
And I guess the local farmers probably knew about it as well.
Local farmers and local ranchers, and the miners as well.
And then the Navy came in, and what did they think when they discovered this?
Well, I think they were very surprised because, you know, they had essentially come in, had moved everybody off, and then, of course, they probably started hearing stories about what exactly was up here, and all of a sudden, the scientists and the sailors and civilians working on the base start coming up here, and it's just, but it wasn't until the 1970s that the general population throughout the state of California began to understand what was out here.
Because the Navy was coming up here to test and develop missiles.
Right, and it was off boundaries to the public, so there really wasn't any public access, so they weren't coming here. But once the Navy found out what was here, they modified their operations in the area to make sure that this area was well preserved, and then they started providing tours to the public through the Maturango Museum to come up.
Because this is like, I mean, this was something totally unexpected, that was world class, that probably at the time they weren't even sure how to take care of it, how to preserve it, how to protect it.
Well, it really wasn't until 1968 with the passage of the National Historic Preservation Act that there was actually a set group of management procedures that the Navy could follow for the preservation of areas like this.
It's a wonder that this whole thing has been preserved and not covered in graffiti, but then you think of how remote it is and how few people ever were out here under any circumstances, and you begin to understand that the fact that it's so remote is what has protected it all these years.
That's true.
See, I think it's the location as much as the drawings themselves that give it this kind of a magical sense. And location was always important to the Native Americans, wasn't it?
Yes, it is. It's very important. Native Americans just didn't camp anywhere or do anything just because.
Just by chance.
Just by chance. Every site that we record, the surrounding environment is just as important as what is there.
Because look at where we are right now.
That's right.
This is magical.
It is. And a lot of times the natural environment is the key to understanding exactly what was going on at the time they decided to camp or create these petroglyphs.
Now this is fascinating to me. We have come upon a rock that's just covered, and it just dawned on me, and it's not good to even touch, is it?
No,
shouldn't touch.
You shouldn't touch them.
That these weren't necessarily all put here at the same time by the same group of people. This is a layer of history right here, isn't it?
That's true, and you can see it in the rock itself. Over here you can see where they went ahead and pecked into the rock. There are various symbols, and then over time it has started to repatinate. So
what do you mean repatinate?
Well, essentially you take a look on the outside of the rock and it has this kind of rind that's a mineral coating of the rock and protects it from wearing away. And in order to create these things, you peck through that protective layer until the white in the background to form so that they stick out. But over time, as these got older, the mineral coating starts to reform on the rock.
So this one right over here could have been done 300 or 400 years before this one over here.
That's absolutely correct. And there's another thing you need to take a look at, and that's right here. You can see where these were pecked into the rocks, and these symbols here were actually scratched in the rock. So not only was it done over time, it may have been done by different cultures as well.
So this was scratched.
Right.
This was pecked.
Right.
Up here. There's your newer sheep form right there, and there's your older sheep right over there that the rock has kind of begun to repatinate over. So really we're looking at a whole timeline here, and maybe even, was it just one tribe, or could it have been several tribes?
It could have been several tribes. We had several tribes in this area even as recent as 300 years ago. You had both the Shoshone and the Paiute used in this area. So there's a good chance you're looking at multiple cultures in here as well.
This is a historian's gold mine right here.
Yeah, archaeologists really love this place.
Yeah.
And coming here is especially for those working in the West, this is one of the places they go, and they will spend days out here. What we're going to do here just this afternoon.
It just keeps getting better. Look where we are now. We have come down to the bottom of this huge, deep gorge. We are surrounded by these rocks. Boy, there's nothing easy about getting down here. But once you're down here, boy, oh my gosh, looking up here, we are surrounded by rock covered in petroglyphs. This is a jackpot down here.
It is. And as we get down further through here and
It gets better?
It gets better.
Oh my gosh, there's a whole wall over here. Look at this. That whole side is covered in drawings. The whole rock is covered. I'm not sure, there's nothing written, there are no words, there's no language, is there?
No, there's not.
This is all just symbolism.
That's true.
And do you think this rock was here when they did it, or did it fall down?
No, I'm pretty sure that it's been here for a while. Looking at the scarring on the rock, it looks like it's been here for a long time.
Yeah, because part of it is chipped away.
Yeah.
Part of the picture is missing here.
That's true.
We've got a missing picture here, and we've got, look, we saw this up here, and this is very interesting. Mike pointed it out, because this is not all totally authentic to the Native American experience, is it, Mike?
No, it's not. You can take a look at the panel and you'll notice the numbers 100 and another one lower, the number 23. And someone has gone in there and pecked those numbers in, and I'm not quite sure why that was done.
But we don't know. That could have been done by early pioneers. That could be historic in itself. Those numbers could be 150, 200 years old.
Well, they could date back to the 1860s. That's when the first Europeans entered the Coso range. So, yeah, they could legitimately date back to that period of time.
Now, no offense to the original Native American artist, but looking at this panel right here and knowing that it was done over the years by different artists, some of these artists were better than others.
That's true. Not everybody can be a great artist. But in this particular case, you got to remember, it's more about the message than it is the art.
That's what the artist would say if somebody criticized his or her work.
Everybody has a skill, is always recognized, and certainly they would have known who was good at this and who was not.
There's surprises everywhere, and coming down off the hill, I almost stepped right in here, and look, there's artwork right here on almost the floor of the canyon.
Right, anywhere where they could peck into the rock and someone would see what they were trying to peck in, that's where the art is. And then it's one of the reasons when we provide tours through the canyon here that we tell folks to stay down in the sandy part of the canyon.
Because they could be walking right over.
Absolutely. Unless you know what you're looking for, unless you're very careful, you could wind up damaging this.
Yeah, you got to know what you're looking for, because look up here. I said, look at all those sticks drawn up on the side of the cliff. And they're not sticks after all, are they, Mark?
No, they're actually, we believe they're human figures, and it's just one of those scenes out there where it shows a group of human beings like they're walking up into the Coso Mountains and on their way to pick piña nuts or hunt sheep, whatever they're intending to do.
So they were stick figures put up there in a succeeding line heading up the cliff.
That's right.
These are my favorites. These are more, can we get up there a little closer?
Sure.
You got, what are these? Are these sheep? These are 5, 6, 7, 8. This is kind of like a sheep montage here.
Right, it's kind of like a sheep herd. And these actually here, looking at the horns, they actually may represent deer. But the interesting thing about these sheep is, if you take a look at the body here and the shape, it's in the shape of a boat. You can kind of see that here. And that's what they call the Coso sheep, is its boat-shaped body. That's what distinguishes it from other sheep that you can find in the Great Basin.
Are these sheep up here? Can you point those out to us?
Right, these are sheep up in here as well.
Big sheep.
Right, you have some, looks like right here you have a sheep's head that's kind of facing us, but these are side shots of the sheep.
And look, right over here, here 5 more sheep. Wow.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that the Coso area is known for. It's just a huge number of sheep, and you can really pick them out on that rock
Oh gosh,
above.
they're all the way back here?
Yeah.
And look over here. This is fascinating. These sheep are standing, they don't even look like sheep. What are these?
No, they well, they are sheep, but they're on their hind legs, and it's almost
Point
like
that out to our viewers, because that one right there.
right here you see a sheep that's completely on its hind legs and one going back on its hind legs, and it's almost as if you're having a fight scene where you see between the rams where they kind of rear up and then they come down and lock horns.
And look, I don't know how the camera picks up any of this, but all along here, covered, all the way down, as far as you can see, there's these absolutely spectacular petroglyphs.
Yep, and that's what this place is known for, and it's 36,000 acres of just this, and this is why it's a national historic landmark.
And you know what? I'm just looking out here too, with the shadows and the sun and the way the sun shines at different times on these rocks. Sometimes a day you can see things, other times a day you can't see them. They're hidden.
Right, the sun plays a very important part of what you can see.
We're standing right under what has to be, because we can't climb up and see it real close, but just looking at it with my eye, this looks like the most intricate piece of art we've seen all day.
Yes, it is. Certain objects, they went to greater detail, and then others, they just went ahead and did outlines.
And isn't this interesting? The artist would have been up on this rock, hanging off the side, tapping all of this in with a stone.
That's true. And
how long do you think something like that would take, like that medicine bag in the middle? Do we have any way of knowing? You're talking about hours, days, weeks?
Well, something like that definitely took probably a whole day or many hours. And you got to remember, they were also doing it either during the summertime or during the winter. There's a very short window when the weather's really good. So it's a good chance that they were either sweating or freezing when they were doing it.
You know, it's almost spiritual in a way to be here, surrounded by all of this, knowing that it was created so long ago by real people with real visions about what they wanted to put into these rocks.
It is, and the more interesting thing about it is that we're not actually part of the culture, but one of the things we get from here is we get greater insight to the culture through the art that they left behind. And so in some ways, by seeing this, it brings us from the present to the past, and we just kind of meet in the middle.
Yeah. Wonder if they had any idea that this many hundreds, thousands of years later, people would be standing here looking up and appreciating what they had done.
I don't know, but you know, one of the things about when you do rock art like this, I think, is that you always have the expectation is that this is something that I did, and this will be left behind when I pass on, and people will come by and admire it later on. So it really, that's a driving force to make something like that and put the detail into it.
To tell a story.
To tell a story, and then to have it to be passed on from generation to generation.
Well, what's been so great about this day is that every single place we have been today on this tour down through the canyon and down into the gorge, people at home can do this as well.
That's right. The Maturango Museum and the Friends of Last Chance Canyon, they both operate tours out of the base, and they charge about $35 per person. But even though it sounds steep, all that money goes into the preservation of their prehistory and history of this region.
To preserve all of this.
Right.
And when people come on the tour, they drive up like we did, and they just walk right down, staying on the sand.
Right.
And they can see all of this all around them.
Yeah, it's pretty much just the way it was when the people were pecking the images into the rock.
Hundreds and thousands of years ago, and people, average people just like me, can see it the same way that these scientists who come here, these geologists, these archaeologists, these historians who come here and just go bonkers over what they're seeing.
That's right. You can see the same thing.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, when you come here, you are literally surrounded with history. It's all around you. These wonderful canyons, these wonderful rocks, all this volcanic rock that spewed forth millions of years ago was used by artists thousands of years ago, and it's still here today for all of us to enjoy. This, my friends, is definitely a fine example of California's gold. It doesn't get any better than this, and it's available for all of us to visit and enjoy.
Well, hello everybody, I'm Huell Hauser, and I sure hope you enjoyed our visit to see those amazing petroglyphs. This is well worth a visit, and I highly recommend it. Now, if you'd like to go on this particular adventure again, share it with family or friends, or more importantly, donate a copy to your local school or library. Of course, it's available on video cassette and on DVD. All you have to do is call 1-800-266-5727, and we'll be glad to send it to you right away.